Go.
WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. It's me, JR. I'm back. I know it's been a long, long time, but we have a topic. We get deeper into mental health when we get in the summer for some reason. For some reason, in the wintertime, we all just hibernate and just try to get through things. But in the summer, the heat makes us and breaks us at the same time. Now, there's two things that go hand in hand and then they branch off into other things: addiction and codependency. When you deal with both of these, you make a big spider web and they intertwine with each other. Um, and eventually, what happens with both of these things, you need to have an outlet, a way to get the freedom you had prior. So today with me, I have Dr. Sarah Michaud, correct?
Yep.
I didn't chop
Perfect.
it up. All right. So I'm going to pass it along to you real quick. Please tell us who you are, why you were here. But this is one thing I need you to do, and this is special. I need you to
Okay.
tell me something you learned from someone other than your parents. Just something you learned from anybody else. Let that be the first thing you do real quick.
Something I learned other than my parents.
Yeah, something you like if
Um,
you learned a parable or anything. Because what this usually does with the guest, it's going to put a smile on your face because you're going to think about somebody you haven't thought about in a while. It could be a grandmother, it could be an uncle, it could be an aunt, it could be a
right.
teacher or an animal.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a mentor of mine one time saying, codependency is all about trying to fix people. And I think human beings, very often, the source of our distress is wishing we could control and change other people. And we wish people would behave the way we want. But someone said to me, you need to see people's lives from their own point of view. And that's helped me so much in the sense of really reducing my upset with other human beings because when I see it's like when I got sober and I ended up having a child and I had all this anger towards my mother for years because she was an alcoholic. But when I had a child and suddenly realized what she was going through as a mother of five children under the age of 10 at one point, being married to my dad who had PTSD, like I totally had compassion and understanding. So I think it's much easier to have compassion for someone and have more spacious them with them when you realize that they're coming perhaps from a completely different belief system, a completely different world that they grew up in. And I think that just helps with broadening our view.
Okay. So sobriety. So sobriety is your message at the very beginning of this podcast. You've been sober for over 40 years, and we're not caring about
Yeah.
an age, but looking back, what was the turning point where recovery stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like freedom?
Well, I think there were several points. I got sober when I was 24. And the reason I had a turning point at that moment is because I literally overdosed in a drug house on a bunch of different things. And I felt like I was losing my mind. I felt bugs crawling all over me. I had done tons of cocaine. I'd been up for days. And I just said, I need help. And so, unfortunately, with addiction and especially the opiates now, you can die so quickly, and you don't have that opportunity after taking a lot of stuff to have this chance at sobriety. So I feel super lucky that I, didn't die and that I had an opportunity to embrace recovery. So I really took it like by the reins. I mean, I felt like I had this chance, and I had never really been kind of in my body, in my heart. I'd always been, a friend of mine calls drug addiction like we're always looking for a relief seeking missile. We're always wanting relief. And sobriety, I had to learn how to find relief and find peace and freedom without drugs. So that was to me the first real big turning point. Another huge turning point is when I realized that underneath the addiction for me was a lot of that history and what I call codependency. I think that word is completely overused now, but basically the focus on other people's needs rather than my own. And that comes at a huge cost. So when I started looking at, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for my life. I can't base my happiness on what someone else is doing. And that's the core of codependency. Originally it started with, someone married or with an alcoholic. That was the origin. Bill W. started AA and his wife Lois, and realized that she had a lot of symptoms of a certain kind. She didn't do drugs or alcohol, but she had her own symptoms. She was anxious, she was depressed, she was fearful, she was controlling, she was hyper focused on him and his recovery. And that's what codependency is. We're way more focused on what someone else is doing or saying or feeling rather than on what we're feeling and doing and saying. And the problem with that, JR, is there's this delusional system. And that's why I reached out to you, because talk about uncommon. You know, People that are focused on others think that that's the way to help them. Oh, I'm going to, call his boss when he's drunk, or I'm going to like send my kid to their eighth treatment center, or drugs and alcohol don't even need to be involved. Geez, I'm going to do my kids' homework for them or whatever. Whatever it is that you're doing that you find that you think it's helping someone actually does the opposite. All it does is not let the other person have consequences for their behavior. And meanwhile, you're going down the tubes because you're exhausted. You're not attending to your own life. You're not taking care of yourself. And that's the irony, is not only do you not help someone else, but you don't help yourself. And that's why I feel so strongly about this. So, going back to your original question, my second turning point was when I really started to look at this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what drove you? I should have did this first. Everybody has different mitigating factors that draw them into addiction and different things like that. So this
Yeah.
is one thing that I do need some clarification on. You are a clinical psychologist and you're someone that's in recovery. That's something we can say
Yes.
100%. And recovery is something that once you're in it, you're always in it. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you believe recovery is. I mean, especially now with the internet and 6 million ways to get sober. I mean, for me, recovery is no alcohol, no drugs. That's what my definition is. But, people do what's called California sober, and they smoke pot, but they don't drink. Or, everybody has, that's my definition. And that's what I think is the most helpful definition. And the reason for that, and we can get into this also later, is the quintessential component of addiction and of codependency is denial. So I always say that it's the only illness, probably besides bipolar, that tells you that you don't have it. So that's why so many people die from addiction, because it's a mental illness. Besides being, physically addicted, it tells us that we're okay, or we're not doing that much, or I can just drink on weekends, or I can drive after 3 drinks. Or that's the mind of an addict. It rationalizes, it minimizes, it romanticizes, and it denies. So the thinking of an addict is one of the most critical components to really learn about. because that's why it's not like a moral issue. I mean, if you could just say to someone, geez, just quit, and they could, they would. But I've known plenty of people die from this illness, alcoholics and addicts. And I've also known people, and this would be another show perhaps, that have quit. A friend of mine's boyfriend killed himself 3 weeks ago and he had 25 years of sobriety. So just because you put down the alcohol and drugs doesn't mean that you're addressing your issues. So I really believe in the power of really doing a deep dive, because otherwise, I believe it's a progressive illness, whether you're drinking or not. You can get more and more depressed if you put down the substance, but you don't figure out what's going on. And, you asked about the origin and the idea of what is it and where did it come from? I mean, it was in my genetics. My mother was an alcoholic, her brothers were alcoholics, my grandparents. I don't believe everybody necessarily has the genetic predisposition. I think I did. I think there's many ways to become an alcoholic or an addict. A kid I knew, broke his leg in high school and started taking Percocet, or I had a patient who retired and he never drank, but he suddenly started drinking because of his loneliness and he became an alcoholic in like 3 years. So I don't think everybody's the same,
I can
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I would like you to do for us real quick, you wrote a book,
Yep.
One Psychologist's Recovery from Codependency and Addiction, a memoir and a manual for freedom. You talk
Yeah.
openly about your mistakes and growth. Was there a moment you almost didn't include?
Didn't didn't include.
Like, was there a moment that you almost didn't include in your book? Because it like felt too
Oh, you mean, is
personal?
there anything that I almost left out?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. Um, I think the thing is, when I hear someone speak or I hear someone do a podcast or I read someone's book, what I connect with is authenticity and the truth. I mean, if someone's telling the truth at, say, an AA meeting and they're sharing their experience, you can hear a pin drop in the audience. But if someone's just giving platitudes or, giving sayings or talking about what you should do and they're kind of detached, everybody's bored. So I feel like there's a real power in story. And so, you know, I have a doctorate in psychology. I'm sober a zillion years. I went to Al Anon for a bunch of years. I came from addiction. I know educationally a lot about addiction. My personal experience, though, on one level, I'm just like you. I'm just like any addict because tomorrow something could happen and I could, suddenly impulsively pick something up and my life could take off. So I have to be super vigilant about my addiction. And so that's why I told my own story. And it's interesting because a lot of people that read the book say they were really drawn in by that part, that kind of following my journey of how I ended up being an addict. And I think I share a lot about the underlying stuff. I don't just tell a story, I talk about, why things are happening and what I felt. And I really don't leave anything out, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure I did. I drank for a bunch of years, but in general, I talk about the destruction to me, my self esteem, my relationships, my soul, really. I mean, you compromise a lot, JR, and you do a lot of things. And this might be the difference between drugs and alcohol. Also, drugs cost a lot of money and you have to compromise yourself in lots of ways to get that money. Whether it's stealing, whether it's sexual behavior, whether it's, taking things from your family, whether it's pulling check scams. I mean, I did it all because when you're desperate for your next high, you will do anything. And
Correct.
so, do I wish that stuff didn't happen? Yeah. But it's also, I got to forgive myself. I make my amends. I do my living amends. I change my life. And then I help other people and pass it on. And that's how I, live with that stuff.
Okay, so
Yeah.
as a psychologist and knowing everything that goes on with the addiction and the codependency, how do you keep yourself from getting into a loop of codependency yourself? Because think
Yeah.
about this, the self-righteous is what they would call a psychologist, a psychiatrist, the psychologist, because they would say, hey, you're still gratifying yourself by helping people, which they would.
Oh, got it. Right.
So,
You, yeah. I mean, I think lots of people can get burnt out, and I've had burnout a couple of times. And I think I've learned over the 30 years of a practice how to take care of myself and how not to be codependent. I mean, when I first started my career, oh my gosh, I had a pager. I was constantly answering calls at night. I mean, I had no boundaries. And I got burnt out pretty quick. And I learned the hard way that if I want to be any help to anyone, I have to be the priority. And I also, the more I learned about codependency, the more I learned that I can't do it for anybody. If I, there's a saying, if I start working harder than the patient, then something's wrong. If I'm more motivated for them to get sober than they are, then something's wrong. So you have to allow the person to do their work. I can't do it for them.
okay, and I like that because that made you more personable inside
Yeah.
this interview. Now, one thing that we do on the show is very nostalgic to the show is we do a shameless plug where you tell everybody where they can meet and greet you across the internet and where they can grab your amazing book across the internet. But when you do the part about your book, please make it to where it's beneficial towards you. So many authors are so modest and they say, go just get it on Amazon. But some people, if they get it directly from you, they usually get an autographed copy. I'm not saying from you per se, but it's
Right.
more personable when they order it from you directly or however you see fit. So please take the floor and give us an amazing shameless
You're so
plug.
funny. Well, the book is called Code Crazy, and sometimes when you look it up, it's hard to find on Amazon for some reason. But I have a website, drsarahmichaud.com, and there's lots of information on that website, and you can order it on that website. And I also have a little YouTube channel, and that's what I really promote people to subscribe and look at those videos because everybody loves videos these days. And my friend and my friend Finn, who's an attorney who's been sober for 10 years, he and I do a lot of videos on codependency, relationships, sobriety. We just recently started doing some funny stuff about codependency with your pets because people are crazy about their cats and dogs and they feed them too much and they do too much for them. So it's the same dynamic. But we have a YouTube channel. It's called Leaving Crazy Town. And I would really direct people there. And if someone can't afford a book, really, you can email me on the website and I'll mail you one. I would be happy to do that.
Okay, I like that. And thank
Yeah,
you for doing that.
of
Now,
course.
now, humor. Humor is a way that all of us, we don't, some people use it as a shell or a way to, a defense mechanism, but humor is a big part of recovery. Can you share one of these? It wasn't funny then, but it's hilarious now, stories from your journey?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I mean, there's so many. I mean, humor to me is so critical. And that's literally, I don't know if you know this, and that's why you're asking this. That's why my friend and I started the YouTube channel, because I really started to feel like there's so many folks out there talking about mental health and anxiety and depression and like trauma. Trauma is like huge right now. And there's so much out there. And I just feel like people can drown in the problem. And I really want to focus on the solution. And I also really feel like everybody's got a story. You've got a story. I've got a story. Like everybody has a tragic story of some kind. I mean, some are maybe more extreme, but we all feel hurt. We all feel shame. We all feel anger. We've all felt embarrassed. We've all had loss. we've all had some level of trauma, small t, big T. And so I really think when you know that, when you know we're all the same, that you can have a sense of humor about it. I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, I had a guy, I don't even know if I'm going to tell this correctly, but when I worked in a psych hospital, um, there was a guy who wanted to tell me he wasn't an alcoholic, and he was going on about, he didn't need to be there. And I was like, you need to check your address. Like, you're in a psych hospital. Like, not people that don't have problems don't end up in a psych hospital. And it's just like, I think when you can have levity around it, people can relate and they can also lighten up a bit and realize that, look, lots of people have addiction. You're not alone. We can have a sense of humor and we can joke about. I mean, I tried to rob a bank one time for Coke money. I mean, yeah. I mean, so I've got all kinds of stories about my history. I've been arrested 3 times. I mean, so, when they say in the second step, restore me to sanity, I definitely was insane because when all you can think about is escaping and getting high, you will do anything and you can rationalize any behavior to get your drugs. So, yeah, I mean, some stuff I can look back and laugh at, and other stuff, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I still get a shiver up my spine. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. So, certain things, I don't know if they'll ever feel okay. And other things are like, man, that was ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah,
So in helping people, you see a lot of different things. But the one landscape that you know of that I can only imagine, I can't even grasp it, is the mental state of a mind. That's what you're trained in. That's what your insights, what your whole life is based on. You're
right,
trained in the human instinct, the antics, all of those things. Really think about it. You are into the antics and instincts of the
right,
human being.
right.
So over 40 years of your own recovery, nothing truly surprises you or amazes you because you've seen quite a bit, right? So
Right.
so in yourself, do you personally hold yourself accountable in this method? Are you the type of person that has to be kept, or are you the type of person that has to be held? And it's the reason I'm asking you this because I'm about to put a little challenge on you.
You're saying, am I the type of person that needs to be kept? Meaning, do I want to be kind of taken care of?
When I say
Or,
kept, like think about the difference in being kept and held. If you're held, you know that's temporary.
oh, got it.
Kept is something that's going to kind of be it has a forever to it, but it can actually be messed up and turned into another held situation.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying this because I mean, I could go in so many different ways. The thing about addiction and why I feel like, I don't know if the word's kept, but why I'm so kind of rigid and serious about it is because if you're just using it loosely and thinking, oh geez, I could, stop going to support groups, or I can do this on my own, or you only want to do it for a year and then see what happens. I've seen plenty of people die from this. And so it's not the type of thing that you can take, you have to really take it seriously. And so I'm not sure if that answers your question. I think the other thing is relationships, I believe, are the place where most people's unresolved behaviors, thoughts, and feelings come out. So, yes, psychologists are about the mind, but we are also about getting in touch with identifying feeling states, learning how to express feeling states. And, the thing about my practice and the reason I wrote the book was because there was two things that came up over and over and over again that I saw if people resolved these two things, nobody would have issues. And one is speaking up, like telling the truth to your husband or wife instead of being afraid, or your boss, or your child, or whatever. I mean, it could be as simple as someone saying, do you want to go for burgers tonight? And they say, oh, okay, but they really want Italian food. I mean, it can be that small, or it can be, honey, do you want to move to Colorado? And she says yes, but she has no interest in moving to Colorado. I mean, those are the things that people don't speak up about. It's small things, it's big things. That's one thing. The second thing, which is similar, is setting boundaries. People don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to say no. And even Gabor Mate, the famous, psychiatrist, said if everybody learned how to say no, then again, people would solve 90% of their problems. So I just went on a rant and I'm sorry about that, but go ahead.
I know. Oh, I like your answer. Now we get to a point where we look at a glass, and the glass is either half full or half empty. Everybody does this. What point in life did you look at that glass and say it was half full or half empty?
Yeah, I'm definitely a half full kind of person. I mean, I've always had a pretty good attitude. And I will say the older I get, the harder it is and the more work I need to put into really working with my thinking. I went through a tough time a couple of years ago. Um, my son had went off, he had moved out. A relationship had ended. I was having a heart thing. Like all this stuff happened. And I started getting depressed. And I noticed that my thinking in the morning was like, I don't need to be on the planet. What's the point? Just this really negative thinking and depressive thoughts in the morning are a really common thing. So I had to start really taking responsibility of turning that way of thinking around. So I may be a half glass full person, but I've also gone through times in my life where I've had to work really hard at changing my thinking. And when you change your thinking, it does change your feeling states. It takes effort. A lot of people talk about gratitude these days. If you can, go through, make a gratitude list, it really helps to see things differently. And that's true also, which is hard when you don't feel well. But, taking one action step is always helpful.
Okay, and I like that.
Yeah.
Now, just because the show, we keep it pretty concise. We will have to have you on for a second time,
Okay.
because I know we have some more stuff to go deep rooted. And next
Of
time,
course.
we're gonna have to like do a whole sitcom. We're gonna have to write a whole sitcom and go through it. Um, the thing that I need to get out here and to help the public is the word codependency. Can you define it in your own words and then guide us on the misinformation about codependency? Because there's a lengthy misinformation about codependency. Because I'm going to give you this real quick. When people talk about codependency, they always, the way that it was portrayed for me in my growth, and this is a kid born in 1985, growing up in the 90s. And then
Right.
when mental health around 1995, 96 got really big, and we started doing more with the MTV generation, mental health started becoming a crisis. Not
Yes.
95 and up. Not saying any of y'all before that didn't have issues, but the forefront internet brought more attention to
Of
psychiatry
course.
stuff. So
Yes.
we were taught that codependency is, oh, I never go without a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. I always have somebody with me to pick me up when I'm down, or I always need something. I need something inanimate or live to keep me going, something to fall back on. Like if I'm boxing in a ring and I hit the rope so I can
Got it.
gain enough energy. That's what I was taught codependency is. Or with drugs, or alcohol or anything that I do excessively, not even, it don't even have to be a drug or alcohol. I get a codependency on a video game because I use it to get out of this world. My relief mechanism is taking up too much time that the world says that I shouldn't spend on it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of like you're melding addiction and codependency. Like an addiction would be, I need something outside of myself to soothe me. So I need some substance or gambling or sex or video games or whatever. At one time, I think I thought my son was addicted to video games. So I need something to kind of escape, soothe myself, calm myself, whatever. That's really addiction. And when you start having negative consequences, you can't stop doing it. Codependency, some people say, is kind of an addiction to a person. But it's really, my definition is I'm preoccupied with how someone else is feeling or thinking or what they're doing. So my focus, I'm not in my body. I'm not over here. I'm over there. Like I'm sitting with my partner and I'm thinking about, geez, what do they need right now? Should I go get them something to eat? Do they need a beer? Do they need this? Are they depressed? So the entire focus is on someone else. But the misconception is this, JR, is most people, that's only as far as they get. What I write about is codependency is about me. It's about looking at what's in me that I need to do that behavior. So the core piece of codependent behavior is fear. I'm afraid of what you think of me. I'm afraid you're going to leave me. I'm afraid you're going to reject me, abandon me, not love me. And I'm going to spend all my time working on that to not happen. That's what codependency is. And the trouble is, it can be completely unconscious. Someone could say, oh, that's just my personality. But no, it's not. I mean, fear, oh God, we should do a whole episode on fear. We are only born with two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Every other fear, fear of rejection, abandonment, someone not loving you, someone leaving you, not being loved, not being wanted, all those interpersonal fears happen because of incidents in childhood. And it's a simple way to kind of process that. But those fears are what keep most human beings, addicts or not addicts, codependents or not codependents, stuck in the past. And so many of those fears and the behaviors out of those fears are unconscious. Oh, I just become a people pleaser because that's who I am. No, I'm a people pleaser because I'm afraid to tolerate my feelings if you're upset. So I got to please you. So there's a reason and underlying, drives that contribute to these chronic behaviors that create codependency that don't work. Because what the ultimate consequence is, I lose myself. I become a piece of Swiss cheese. I've dismissed my needs for so long. I've sat with people in my office. They don't even know what their needs are. They know what their kids' needs are or their husband's needs are, but they don't know what their needs are. So, I mean, that's the codependency. Yeah. I mean, and that's on a spectrum. I mean, I can see someone who's a new mom and she's kind of overdoing the mom thing and the baby thing because of her own fear. Like that's at one end. And then at the other hand, I'll see a couple in their 70s refinance their house 4 times for another treatment center. They're going broke. They're not well. They're unhealthy and they can't stop helping their kid. And, you know, it kills people. So that's why I'm so adamant about it. And of course, you have a state and we have a country with the opiate addiction. And the problem is the biggest fear of someone stopping their codependent controlling behavior is that my loved one is going to die. And this is what I would say to that. And this may sound heartless, but it's true. You aren't controlling whether they die or not, they are. And, I've had parents say, okay, no, I can't kick them out. I've got to have them live here. And then the kid overdoses in the basement. You're not controlling it by controlling them. It's a delusion. So you can't keep someone alive. But the biggest fear is that they will die. And the fact is, people do die. That's the tragedy of addiction. But you can save your own life. And that's my message. Yeah.
Okay, and I thank you for that. Now,
Yeah.
everybody, real quick, so we can wrap this up for you guys, and I'll say this: we'll definitely have to have Dr. Sarah back on again. Oh, yeah, I didn't mess up your last name because I did good. Misho, right?
Yes, Misha.
Misho. That's how, and you can see it. You'll see it in the show notes. Everybody, it's one thing that I do want to remind everybody about. The show notes are the after podcast effect. That's where you find out the information that was presented here in the show. We both know that the AI that I will use to get the show notes from the transcript will pull everything together. They will pull every hyperlink and everything we need to go there so that you can purchase our book. You can get intertwined and become part of her ecosystem. And that's the thing here, people. People so too much they think that, oh, just because this one person went through it and that person doesn't look like me or smell like me or
Right.
whatever, that I can't agree with it. Really take a moment for yourself and think about this. Everybody has somebody in their family that has addiction.
Yes.
Everybody has someone in their family that has recovered or has become part of the recovery process. No matter what we do now in this day and age, we all have a friend. We have someone that is near and dear to us that this happens to, this becomes part of their lives, and it becomes part of your life directly and indirectly. So that's why I do so much and try to have guests that come on talk about this stuff, because I want people to have a better understanding and understand that no matter what happens, we're all still humans. We
Yes.
all have mental factors and mental friction that cause things to happen. It doesn't matter how strong you are or how weak you are, it all is determined on how your perception of the trauma is. And that's the one thing that I can never stress hard enough to people. And remember, perception is just like an opinion. It's visual, it's audio, it's felt. So people just be a little understanding sometime, empathy, and then actually, like the great doctor said, the perspective of the other person. That's where we get lost in translation so many times. So on that note, I'm J.R. Sparrow. She is Dr. Sarah Michaud, and we're out of here. So I guess I got to let that British lady do what she does. She's going to do a little outro, and we'll see you guys. I'll see you guys on the next episode. And thank you so much, Dr. Sarah.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at oncommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.